All right, guys, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome wrestling legend Rudy Boy Gonzalez. How you doing, bro?
Hey, how's it going, man? I'm sorry about the camera thing. I can't figure this thing out, but something's better than nothing, I guess.
I guess something better than nothing, man. But we'll work on it down the road. But yeah, man, tell me about yourself, man.
Well, I got in the wrestling business in back in 1982, and like a lot of guys at that time, I started just helping with the ring, and then they moved me up to selling merchandise, and then helping sell tickets and passing out flyers, obviously. And one day they needed a referee for a town, so with the minimal instructions, which was count them, if their shoulders on the mat, count to 3. If they're on the ropes, count to 5. If they're outside the ring, count to 10. And I did that for a little while.
That's pretty obvious for referees, huh? That's mostly their assignment, like when they have to count to 3 on the pin, 5 on the rope breaker or something, and like count out and all the other stuff for 10.
Yeah, well, actually, it's a little bit more. There's a little bit more to it than just that. That's just the bare minimum. You got to know where to stand, where not to stand, get out of the way. So that was just the bare minimum. And then as time went on, and I guess I did a good job because they asked me to referee again. And they sent me to this sporting goods store that was here in San Antonio. That they got the wrestling, the pants and the referee shirt and stuff. So they, that's where he sent me. So I went to go get that stuff. And then I was refereeing for a while. And then basically the same way that I got into the refereeing spot, they needed an extra guy one night for TV. I'm sorry about that. They were short a guy. So, and I had been training off and on with some of the guys in the afternoons. And so they were short a guy. So somebody said, hey, Rudy's out there ringing the bell. He can bump. He knows he can do this. He can do that. So they sent somebody out there, and they pulled me in the dressing room, and they, somebody loaned me Eric Embry loaned me a pair of boots, and a guy named Bobby Fulton loaned me a pair of trunks, and that was my first wrestling match.
Interesting. So you started off as a referee, and then you got your opportunity when they were short on wrestlers, and then they said you did pretty good on the bumps, huh?
And that's basically how it was for a lot of guys. You train to one day eventually become, start wrestling, but no one ever said, okay, like right now is October 23rd or whatever. Okay, so November 15th is your first match. That never really happened because, the rosters were always so full. And the only way you really got in is if somebody didn't show up or if they needed a guy. And since a lot of guys at that time, they made their living doing this stuff, there were very few no-shows or, guys not, making the dates. So the guys that weren't wrestling yet, they had to wait until there was an opportunity. And I just, I was just lucky. I got a good break and a guy didn't show up and they threw me in. And yes, I did. I really didn't know a whole lot either, and I took some bumps here and there, and listened to what was being, what I was told to do, and when we went to the back after the match, it was like probably about a 6-minute match, but sometimes when I think about it, it seemed like it was 6 hours, and then sometimes when I think about it, it seems like it was 6 seconds. But it, we went to the back, and the guys said I did well, and they said if you get your own stuff, we'll start putting you on the road. So I had to save up some money for a week or so, and got a pair of boots from a guy named Bill Ash over in Arkansas, and then ordered a pair of wrestling trunks from a place called K&H Wrestling in Ohio, and I was set to go.
Yeah, you got an opportunity, but weren't you trained by Manny Fernandez or no?
So I say Manny and I say Chavo and some of the Chavo Guerrero and some of the other guys, simply because like in the mornings, we had a building that there was a ring always set up. That was our TV building. And so the guys would show up in the mornings, like around 10 o'clock in the morning, and roll around and stuff. And so it never failed. There was Manny Fernandez and Chavo Guerrero. Tony Falk would show up every now and then. Tully would show up every now and then. Dick Slater would show up every now and then, but the main guys was Manny and Chavo, and they would go in there and run us through the drills and stuff. And so, I credit those guys for breaking me in. But I mean, I tell guys I was lucky because I got like a whole list of guys that, today guys do clinics for 2 hours or whatever and talk about a lot of stuff. But my clinics were the 2 hours in the ring with guys like Luthez and Nick Kaniski and his brother Kelly Kaniski, and I got in the ring and I'm not ashamed to say it, I got stretched by Luthez. And I mean, we got in the ring with the guys, and there wasn't no talking. You got in the ring and you did whatever you had to do, and that's how I learned.
Yeah, the old school way of how they were pushing, but in today's wrestling, it's not like as intense as it used to be, huh?
No. So back then, I mean, they got you in the ring and they were showing you, but like maybe a headlock, they would show you how to do a headlock properly, but they would squeeze the heck out of your head too, and just so you'll know what it feels like to get someone squeezed down your head, or they would take you and take you in a wrist lock or something and twist the heck out of your arm till you think you're it's gonna pop out of a joint. Today, man, if you do that stuff, you're gonna be called a bully, and you're gonna be, people are gonna accuse you of trying to hurt people, and it's just a whole different world now.
Yeah, it is. Especially in the locker room, you can't even do none of those ribs anymore.
No, and I mean, I saw, and that's all they were ribs. There was a guy named Cowboy Lang who was a midget, and he was about 3.5 feet tall or so. And so somebody got his cowboy hat and they put it up on one of the shelves of the one of the shelving that we had there. And the poor guy couldn't, he was a midget. So even though he tried jumping up and grabbing his hat, we all, I was a kid. So, I just watched. I wasn't part of the rib, but everybody else just like went about their business, tying up their boots or stretching or whatever, and just completely ignored this guy. I knew enough not to hey, let me get it for you, because they were ribbing him. So, I just sat there and watched and kind of laughed. But, you do that now, man. And again, you're called a bully and you're taking advantage of people, and, you're going to get kicked out of the dressing room and stuff like that. And again, a whole different world.
Yeah, a whole different world. The way it's different. Like, they don't do stuff like that, or else they would report you for those type of stuff nowadays. So it's like a little different then.
You'll get reported to the office, and then you'll get your name posted up on social media, and people will make their comments, and it was just a joke, man. Just relax, but that's just how it is now.
Yeah, it's a little soft with the rib jokes nowadays. Like what we saw from today's wrestling doesn't slide like you said. But I like this question by my boy Steven Rose. He's one of those guys from Houston. So asked him, are there any wrestlers he hated working with?
Honestly, I didn't have it. I wasn't given that luxury of I don't want to work with this guy, or I do want to work with this guy, or this is my favorite guy. I was in learning mode. So some guys, looking back now, some guys were hard to work with just because they didn't want to work with this kid. Some guys were easy to work with, but it was a learning experience either way for me, because I learned how to deal with the guys that didn't want to work with me. And I learned how to figure them out and work around them. And even though I was in a bad position, how to make, how to make chicken salad out of chicken, whatever,
chicken shit, like chicken shit.
There you go. Yeah. You, and then you just put that in your pocket and go on to the next match. Not everybody back in the day were easy to get along with. There were some assholes back then also, but you just learned how to work around them.
Yeah. There's a lot of them like that. There's some that you have to work with and just make the most out of it. Like, even if you don't like the person, you just keep it business like most people. Ooh, any wrestlers you end up becoming lifelong friends with? Oh, I like to hear this one.
A lot of the guys that I started with, I mean, I still occasionally talk to Bobby Fulton, Eric Embry, I talk to off and on here and there. James Beard, who's a referee out of Dallas, I talk to still. But a lot of guys, in all honesty, man, they they moved up to that big territory up in the sky. So little by little, I have a friend named Dusty Wolf who now he's married and has kids and stuff, and I mean he has his own thing going. Um, and then anyway, I mean I keep to myself for the most part. I run my school and deal with my students. I still talk to Brian Kendrick, who I trained back in '99 with in Sean's school. I mean we're very good friends. But me, I mean, and it's not their fault. It's me. I'm just a very keep to myself type of guy. And so everybody has. I feel like everybody has their lives to lead. Wrestling is something that a lot of guys have put behind them. So I feel like we go. Me and you sit back and talk, and it's going to be all, hey, remember this, remember that, and they may not be good memories for for the other guy. Me, I've enjoyed every second I've been in this business. I've enjoyed it. I've loved it. But I know there are some guys, my age that that are disgusted with the business today because of the drastic changes that have occurred. But
Yeah.
as far as still talking to guys from back in the day, I talk to Telly Blanchard every now and then. I talk to Chavo Guerrero often until he passed away a couple of years ago. I mean, I still try and keep in touch with some of the guys.
Yeah, there's just some people that they all go different directions. They go with their life, and you did training school, but didn't you do some training for the what is it, the Ohio Valley Wrestling too, or no?
I went for a week and I was supposed to help, but I really didn't. I was more. They got a great program there, and so I was more an observer. I was like watching because the trainers there were doing such a great job, and I was taking away stuff that they do over there that I can use at my place here in San Antonio. But yeah, I was there for a week and worked with Doug Basham and the other trainers that were there as well.
Yeah, they got a good track record over there because I remember I think Jim Cornette was running that territory for a while with what's that dude, that Danny Davis guy?
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they were running that territory for a while, and they were bringing in some wrestlers. And I believe you were the one that was like you said, you had a little bit of the observe part. So I guess I thought it said you were training there. That's what I was looking into.
Yeah, no, I went I went for a week. Like I was going. I'd been a couple of times to the Performance Center in Orlando, and they bring me down for a week, and I'm a guest trainer there. And so I asked Al if they were interested in having me down as a guest trainer as well. And by this time Al Snow's running it now, and Al said, "Sure, come on down." And like I said, the idea was for me to go and help train, but I mean, I ended up observing more than anything else because I mean they were just doing different things, and I wanted to bring some of that back to my place. So I wanted to make sure I did everything correctly and not bring my students false information.
Oh, you wanted to give them the knowledge they need to learn. Yeah, that's good resources right there from the looks of it. I mean, how many wrestling promotions did you work for, and was there any ones in particular you enjoyed working for?
I've enjoyed working with everybody. I mean, at one point I had worked for every promotion in Texas. I mean, I started with Southwest Wrestling. I moved over to World Class Wrestling, and those were the two main ones at the time. And then I went to USA Wrestling, which turned into Texas All-Star Wrestling. And then I went to Global. I did World Class I did a couple of shows for World Class Wrestling. I went to Global Wrestling. I did a couple of shows for USA Wrestling again. There was another USA Wrestling promotion. And then here in San Antonio, there was some groups that popped up when the territories shut down. So I worked for them, obviously. And then there was a couple of groups in South Texas that I worked for. Chris Adams ran a promotion up in the Dallas area, so I worked for him. I I mean, guys just popped up in different places, and but here and there, back then until the I guess mid-90s or so, there really weren't a whole lot of independent promotions in Texas. Now, I mean, there's a promotion on every street corner just about, and that's a good thing and it's a bad thing, but also now I'm not wrestling as much. There's some people that will still call me. I'm an older dude now, so I don't expect the phone calls or nothing, but I still get people that will call me to do a show. And part of me says no because I'm like I said, I'm old, but part of me says, hey man, if there's an interest, I'll jump at it. I'll do it because I don't know when I don't know when this ride's going to end. And like I said, I have so far up to this point, I've enjoyed every second that I've been part of this business. I love it. I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's no regrets for some people. I mean, some people would look back, say, "Oh, I would rather do something else." But for some people, they say, "I don't regret it one bit. It was worth every bit of it."
Exactly.
I mean, I think I seen an older video where you were actually like wrestling a few individuals, but it was like in a school gym or something.
Yeah, independent wrestling. That's where a lot of. I mean, if you want to have a good presentation, you're going to use a high school gym or a civic center. I really
Something
don't
like
care.
that,
Yeah, I really don't care to. I mean, even though I've done it myself, I really don't care too much about being in bars and stuff like that. But I mean, sometimes in some towns, that's the best place to hold an event. So, but high school gyms, man, are good places to run wrestling at.
Yeah. Like I've seen some of them run it that way, or they have different like small auditorium places where they do it too. So there's like some of them in the valley that I've checked out, and there's a lot of them that do like certain events, like you just said, the high schools or certain school areas.
Right.
Well, since you've been wrestling all over Texas, like all the promotions, there was a wrestler that could have been a bigger star, but life cut up too short, man. Like I've seen this guy's document. He could have been a big star, but he was cut life short over something with drugs or some issues. But his name Gino Hernandez. That dude, did you ever wrestle with him?
Never wrestled him. I refereed 2 matches with him. When I came in, kayfabe was a big thing, so a lot of the guys didn't know me. Gino was one of the first guys that actually came and sat down and, hey, what's going on, and that type of stuff. Very nice dude. I got along with him very well. And I mean, when I heard that he passed away, man, it was hard because, like I said, he was one of the first guys back in the day. If guys didn't know you, they didn't talk to you. So my job in the beginning was to help a guy named Juan Reynosa set up the ring, and everybody knew Juan. So when the wrestlers would start showing up, you would hear them, hey Juan, what's going on? Hey brother, hey, what's going on? And I didn't know anybody, so they would just walk by me. And I understood. I didn't know anybody and they didn't know me. So, I'm not going to get the hug. I'm not going to get the handshake. I'm not going to, but Gino, like I said, one day we're in, I don't know, Freer, Texas or Alice, Texas, one of these little towns. And Gino walks in. I think he was with Tully or he might've been with a guy named Tank Patton, or I don't remember who was with me. He walks in and I'm sitting at the chair by the ring. And he just said, what's up? And I said, how's it going? He said, Gino Hernandez. And I was like, Rudy Gonzalez. He extended his hand, shook my hand. He goes, how's the ring? And I was like, the ring's good, I guess. He goes, everything, is it tightened up? Is it good to go? I'm like, yeah. And I learned later that when he first got into the wrestling business, he put the ring up as well. That's how he started also. A lot of guys back then started by putting up the ring and stuff like that. So, he was like, is it holding up? I mean, how's it feel? Have you bumped in it? Did you run the ropes? I'm like, yeah, I ran the ropes. And he's like, good. I think he said something like, we're trusting you or something like that. And I've always kept that. And he got up and walked off, but he was the first guy to, even acknowledge me. And like I said, a couple of years later, when I found out he passed away, it was like, holy shit, it's pretty tough.
Yeah, I mean, he was like, I don't. He could have been a bigger star. That's what I've
Oh,
heard about, like a bigger superstar.
oh
Like in
yeah.
the
I mean,
territory, yeah, he was big in Texas, but imagine if other territories like WWF would have got him, you'd think he would have been bigger than what he was.
oh, yeah, by all means. I mean, the biggest territory at that time was it was
World Class
WWF.
Championship Wrestling.
Yeah, it was world class, but there was WWF and there was NWA. There was the Crockett's promotion out on the East Coast, and from what I understand, there was talk of him going to the Crockett's promotion. I don't know if he declined it or if he was thinking about it or how that was playing out, but he ended up passing away before it even happened.
Well, so he had some opportunities, but it just didn't happen at the end. I mean, there were some other good wrestlers, but did you ever had a chance to like work behind with Bruiser Brody? That dude was like a scary guy.
I worked several matches with him and refereed a few of his matches. The old saying is if Brody didn't like you, then you were in for a long night. And if he did like you, it was easy for you. So I mean, I was on his good side. Um, I know there was a time where he'd had a match with Abdullah the Butcher, and they one of the things that was going to happen was the referee that was the guy that was refereeing that match was going to get hit, and so they needed another referee to go out there to pick up what he couldn't do because he was injured. You know what I mean? And so I was the other referee there. So um, they're telling me what the plan is and stuff, and Brody, and they're going to fight outside the ring and so on and so on. And Brody just grabs me by my shoulder and he says, just stay with me. And I said, all right. And I mean, there's a video out there, and if you watch, I'm right there. It's we probably had about 2,500, 3,000 people in the building, and I'm right there. Him and Abdullah were fighting in the building, on the floor and whatever, and on the stage and wherever, and I'm right there trying to keep the fans away. It's on YouTube.
It should be on there. There's some old videos I've looked up on different videos, like the ones where you can get too close to the fans and all that. I mean, there was even some heat where the fans were super close. Now in today's, you got all the bunch of security guards, all that stuff. You can't get up too close to the wrestlers anymore.
That was part of the experience, man. And in a way, it's good, and in a way, it's not good because there was no with the way the mindset was back then with wrestling. There was no guardrail. There was no all that held the fans back from the ring, or the only thing that held the wrestlers back from the fans was a piece of 1-inch rope.
That's about it.
Yeah. And that was like the magical barrier, and guys knew not to cross it and fans knew not to cross it. And that was like their security blanket. I mean, but there was still that element of, that's all that's dividing us is a 1-inch rope. And then, Vince McMahon came in and he started putting these barricades up and crowd control stuff. So, but part of the experience, man, is if you're doing it right, if the wrestlers are doing it right, part of that experience is the fans feeling that sense of, danger. It's like if you go to the zoo and, you go to look at the lions and there's nothing between you and the lion except for 20-foot gap between the lion, exhibit and the customers. And, I mean, you don't know if the lion can jump that gap or not, or if, I mean, it's like, what the heck's going on here,
It's a little different now because it's more because in those days, in those territories, they didn't have it. They just had the little thing to block here and there, but it wasn't like you can still jump in if you wanted to as a fan.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, and some fans did. And once they put their head through the ropes or they grabbed the ropes, they got a boot. And it just took one guy to get kicked around like that, and the rest of people there knew we better, we better stay in our seats.
Yeah, they should. Well, I mean, there is a lot of I guess from Stephen Rose, like he kind of goes through these little wrestling thing. I think Booker T does something called what is it? Does a promotion of reality of wrestling, and I think
Reality
other.
wrestling.
So
Right.
there's still a Texas independent wrestling that's still been there since '92. Texas All Star Wrestling. Is that something you worked with before?
The guy's name is Bob, and they've been around for a while. Yeah. I'm not. So there used to be. Okay, so Joe Blanchard sold Southwest Championship Wrestling to a guy named Fred Barron, and for a moment there, Fred Barron had changed the name to Lone Star Wrestling or something or other, and then that wasn't very long, and then he changed it to Texas All Star Wrestling, and then that ran for a little while, and then he shut it down, and another guy named Bob picked up the name. I don't know if that was legal or not, but he took over the name and called it Texas All Star Wrestling, and that's what we have today is Bob's version of Texas All Star Wrestling.
So that's what it's called over there. Okay. And then you got Booker T's Reality Wrestling. So that's like something. So that's where he's training Zilla Vatu and those other guys.
Right, and Booker I think has been around since 2000 maybe.
Oh, so you've been running that territory for a while. Okay, so like,
yeah, I think it was called something else before Reality of Wrestling. I don't remember what it was though, but I think he's been running it for a while though.
So he's been well ahead of the game. So even in his wrestling career, he was still running a school, but still wrestling. So
right.
There's quite a few guys who's still trying to train to this day. Like I've even had quite a few of the guys who do some school training. That one dude that used to be called the Mountie, Rougeau, he does a training school, but I don't know if he still does it still, but I interviewed him a while back. I mean, there's a lot of guys who still do it. I think Nick Dinsmore does a little training too, if I'm mistaken.
I believe so. I believe he's up in the North Dakota, South Dakota area, something like that.
Yeah, he told me something like that.
But I mean, the best guys to learn from are the guys that have, honestly, are the best. The best guys to learn from are the guys that have been there because they can teach their students the ins and outs of the politics and what to say, what not to say. I mean, I tell guys the same thing. Wrestling is a small part of wrestling, and I'll put like my pinky, my thumb and my index finger together like an inch apart. And then I'll have my other arm extended all the way across like a big wide gap. And I'm like, this is wrestling. And what I'm emphasizing is wrestling is a small part of wrestling. I mean, there's so much more involved in it. And when you have guys that are running wrestling schools now that have only wrestled at the independent level or their hometown or, that type of stuff, they're not teaching guys the right way. They're just teaching what they know. But when you get a guy like Nick Dinsmore, who's been around for a while and he's been with the big companies, he's made a living doing this. He has far more knowledge. Like I'll tell guys, if there's any wrestling school in Texas you should go to, it is Booker's because Booker is, he has his finger on the pulse of wrestling. I mean, he's part of NXT. I mean, that's like the hottest promotion right now. I think I'm the only guy in fact, I know I'm the only guy in Texas that I didn't start my own wrestling school. A lot of guys, they're not getting booked or they're not getting booked like they want to be booked or how they should be booked or they didn't get the title or they're not winning enough matches or whatever. So they get upset and they go and open their own wrestling school. And it doesn't really cost a whole lot to buy a ring. So they buy a ring. And it's a headache. It is, but it's really not that hard to run a wrestling show either. So now you have all these promotions. I was asked by Shawn Michaels to help him run his school, and I did. And then when it was time for him to close the school down, he said, "Do you want it?" And I was like, I guess so. Yeah, sure. So I didn't start my school. He gave it to me, and I'm just running it the way we ran it in 1999 and in 2000 and 2001. I haven't really changed it a whole lot. I mean, and that's really a good thing. I mean, it's a good thing. It could be a bad thing also. Um, but I mean, one of the things I just read from that Tom Pritchard wrote was that he posted on Facebook was your trainer needs to know these people that are at these upper levels and have a connection with them so that they can help their students get up to that upper level also. In a lot of wrestling schools, the guys have no clue. They don't know how to get to first base, and but they're training guys, and and like, and in my opinion, that's really not a good thing because like you're not really you're filling up this you're filling up this business with kids or talent, but you're really not educating them the way you should be to help them succeed. So there's a lot of kids in the independents that they're only going to make it at the independent level because whoever trained them or taught them or whatever didn't teach them, didn't educate them on what it's going to take or what they need to do to get to the next level and stay there and be successful.
Yeah, I guess like you said, some of the trainers, it really depends on how they elevate them. Like you can train them and all that, but if they can go to main event status or go to a bigger promotion, that would be a plus for them. But from your track record, you've trained a lot of great wrestlers, and they become very successful.
I've been lucky.
Oh, this is interesting. I forgot to answer this question. I don't know. Are you too familiar with this? Do you watch WWE or not as much?
Oh, of course, yeah.
Okay, there was an old segment like with JBL and Eddie Guerrero. What you thought of that segment? Was it Big Heat then? That shit was messed up.
It was cool, man. It was so that's what I'm talking about. I mean, so this was back in 2004, I guess, and they asked me to actually asked me, can you find a guy to fill this spot? And we're looking for a Hispanic guy and a Hispanic woman. We need 3 or 4 kids. They didn't come right out and say it, but it was like your typical Hispanic family, a father,
Yeah, something like that.
a father, a wife, 4 kids, and the grandmother, And so I asked a couple of guys, that I thought would fill that spot. And, they're like, no, I'm not going to do that. What's it for? Who's it? Are we getting paid? Who's it for? What's it? Why do you want to do something like that? That's all WWE told me was just, this is what we need. And can you help us with that? And so a couple of days later, I called the office and I'm like, I can't find nobody. So he said, can you do it? And I guess, sure. So once I got to the location, then they explained to me what they were looking for. And like I said, and that's where they said, we need your typical Mexican family to look like they're crossing the border, and you're the father, and you're going to be guiding them through the brush, and then JBL is going to stop you, and he's going to get in an argument with you, and then you're going to take your family and run back across the river. And,
you did that segment, huh?
Yeah. And I was like, all right, but like after I did it, it came on TV and stuff. I had a few people that were like, hey, man, that was really cool, man. That was cool. That was great. There's a couple of guys that I called for that. They're like, why didn't you tell me, bro? I'm like, I did tell you, but those same people in 2004 that said, hey, man, that was cool. That was cool. That was great. That was cool. Today, they're like, man, you disgraced the Mexican people. That's disgusting. That's and I'm like, whoa,
different era, different time because it would slide then, but today they wouldn't allow it. So like, what you saw with Chavo Guerrero, his kind of like character where he played Kerwin White, that wouldn't slide in today. The Eugene character wouldn't slide because it's kind of making fun of disabilities, but he was just playing a role of a disability.
Exactly. But it's just, I think it's funny because it's TV.
It's supposed to be like entertainment.
Yeah, I just saw like I forgot, and I laughed my ass off because God, what was it? It was It was a cowboy movie, and they threw the N word all over the place, and I'm like, holy cow! And then there it goes again, and there it goes again, and there it goes again. And I just like, Jesus, 2000 whatever, 2024. What they're still using that word, and it was like, and no one said a word about it. No one has ever mentioned it.
It's a different way how they allow it, I guess. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
we all hate the cancel culture. They just take away the freedom. Like, I
right.
guess everything nowadays is offensive. We can't even say certain stuff or else it's going to offend them. So it's like, man.
Well, I just saw I didn't see Raw Monday, but I just saw on the internet where some people are upset because Carlito made a comment about having eaten Chinese food after the two Asian girls from Raw were on TV or something. I don't get the why they're upset, but for some reason, because he made that comment, people are upset and they want to cancel him out and complain to WWE, and that's inappropriate and stuff. And it's like, it's a TV show, man. What do you guys?
He's trying to do his job the way he's supposed to do it. So it's like, I mean, I've seen worse comments, but I think the comment that he was saying was like, I think he was trying to like be a goofy character and try to act off. Like, you know how R-Truth was acting like before?
Yeah. Okay, I got you.
I think that's what Carlitos ended up trying to be like now, a little bit like R-Truth now, where he kind of is like the lackey guy, the one that kind of like says the dumb stuff now.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I did like the Chavo Guerrero Jr.'s gimmick. I thought it would have worked pretty well until Eddie passed away. That's what really kind of like canceled his character. It would have got a good run with it. No,
I think I agree with you. I know what you're saying. I think though that they just should have kept on with it. I mean, it's I don't know. I don't think they should have stopped doing the deal, but I think they should have kept on.
yeah, that's what really kind of like it would have got. It was getting a solid run. Like, I mean, a win over Shelton Benjamin is better than nothing.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah, he had some good matches where he won some matches under that gimmick, and then I mean, it could have gone somewhere, but now you just can't even use that character. It's more like I guess like you just said, when you did that, they thought it was cool, but now it's like a disgrace. So it's like, man, make up your mind then. I guess in today's generation, it's just soft.
But it's weird though, because like when I got into the business, and I was always told this. I mean, when I got in, it was the early '80s, and there were Germans, there were Samoans, there were Indians, they were, Ivan Putski was a goofy Polak, and fans knew, kind of like these guys really aren't, Ivan Putski isn't really a goofy Polak, and these Indian guys really don't run around with headdresses on. Fans knew that wrestling was kind of, whatever you want to call it. But they went along for the ride. But I was also told that we kind of take the fan. If we do our job right, we kind of take them away from the realities of the outside world, and just for a few hours, for a couple of hours, an hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 hours, however long the show is, we take them away from all the BS in the real world, and we just bring them into our world and let them enjoy themselves. And that's why I was saying. I mean, Chavo. I mean, Eddie passed away, and Chavo was on a good run, and Eddie's passing was tragic, but
it was.
I feel like if they would have kept on with Chavo's deal, even though whatever happened to his uncle was horrible, Chavo's still out there doing his thing. And I'm not saying we forget about Eddie, but it just takes us away from that tragedy, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, it happens during a situation like that. Like, nobody expected it, and it was just shocker when somebody like said something about what happened and what caused him his death. And it's still one of the most tragedy for some wrestling fans, because it's like how did that happen? He was at a hotel in Minneapolis or something, and then next second he dies. So it's like, And the one who had the most suffering of devastated was Chris Benoit out of everybody. And I don't think he was ever the same guy.
No, I don't think so either. I
He
think
was very close to Eddie. Yeah.
yeah, what a lot of people don't realize is that there a lot of guys. I shouldn't say. Oh, you know what? I'm going to speak for myself. If it wasn't for wrestling, I'm not really sure what I would be doing right now. I know when I got out of high school, I wanted to be a high school football coach, and that's what my deal was. And then somehow I got into pro wrestling. Um, that was when I got out of high school. I'm older now, and I'm still in pro wrestling, but I'm also slowly but surely, believe it or not, weaning myself away from the wrestling business and taking less dates and spending more time at home and and when I say spending more time at home, I mean I'm at home watching TV. I don't even worry about nothing wrestling wise. If I want to, I'll flip I'll put the Peacock channel on or something. But a lot of guys can't do that, and they use. I feel like they use wrestling. I know. Okay, once again, I'll put myself in the spot. I used to use wrestling as an escape. Like I'm just like everybody
As a
else.
way out. Yeah. As a way
Yeah,
out for some people.
I've had bad relationships. I've had bill collectors. I've had repos. I've had all that, all this real life issues come my way. But they all go away when I'm on the road, when I'm wrestling, when I'm, um, trying to do my job, getting fans pissed off or make them holler, scream, whatever. All that stuff goes away, um, and and it for lack of a better word, it clears my mind. Um, but then when the show's over and the lights go down, as they say, and you're driving home by yourself on the road, then all the stuff comes back and hits you. Some guys can't deal with that. Some guys, they have to be on the road. They have to be wrestling. They have to have that adulation. They have to
Get away from all the stuff. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And they don't know how to deal with it if they're not, and that sucks.
Some of them can't handle that, so some of them end up being depressed or just feel like in some different ways about it. Like sometimes their life is miserable and nobody doesn't know about it, so it's like that's why they keep it very quiet when they're in the business.
Right, and I think nowadays with social media, I think guys still deal with that today. Except today, guys use social media as the out. When back in the 80s, let's say, for example, I'm not going to mention your name. I remember sitting with somebody who I thought the world of, and they were badass, and that type of stuff. And, if I ever said, man, this stuff sucks, you got to deal with it, kid. You just got to deal with it, and I thought he was the toughest guy in the world. And then I find out later he overdosed and died. And and he was dealing with shit. He was dealing with stuff. He just never told anybody. I feel like kids today there's still the same stuff out there that they have to deal with. But today they vent on social media, and you see it because they'll say, "Hey, man, I'm gonna take a couple of weeks off from social media because of my mental health or whatever." And some guys are like, well, maybe mentally you're not equipped to do this. Well, they're taking time away, and I would rather see a guy say, "I'm taking time away from wrestling to work on my mental health," than see a guy trying to juggle his mental health and wrestle and still be unhappy and be miserable and use pills or whatever to deal with that stuff, and then they're no longer with us.
Yeah, that's what we rather have. But in those days there wasn't stuff like that. So now they're like more open about it. Like, oh, I need to take a break. I need to get some of the, it gives them that platform to be wide open and tell everybody it's okay to be open about your issues and all that.
Exactly.
It's like a therapy session, but in the social media world. But
It
like,
can be. Yep, it can be. I mean, but people also use social media as a tool to hurt other people also, and that's not cool at all.
different bad tools, but then there's the positive one and the negative side. So yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'll answer this question for Steven. I guess he's kind of follows the wrestling a lot. So ask him what's some worst injuries he's seen or had in wrestling. What was the worst injuries you had or you ever seen from a wrestler?
The worst I guess you could say is that I've seen firsthand was I saw a guy in Mexico do a moonsault, and he jumped from the middle rope corner. He jumped from the middle rope to the top rope, and then he was going to springboard back and land on the guy in the ring. And I'm in the ring also as my partner. He was going to land on, and he slips and he goes straight down on his head and broke his neck. I mean, I was in one corner fighting with my opponent, and my partner saw him fall on his head, and he stood there and looked at him, and I saw the guy fall, so I grabbed my partner and we pinned him, and the referee was counting because that wasn't the finish, so the referee was counting kind of like 1, 2, and I'm yelling at the referee, count. We're in Mexico, but I'm saying, count, you motherfucker, count. And I'm going nuts, count. And the referee is like 1, 2, count. And then finally he's 3. And my partner's like, what the fuck, what's going on? And I grab him, I'm like, let's go. So we go to the dressing room, and my Spanish isn't very good at all. So I was trying to explain to him what happened. And as I'm doing that, they're bringing the guy on a table and past our dressing room door, and I've never heard from him since. I've never heard anything about it. I think he died. Um, the way he was laying there, I mean, I remember it was just his head was kind of twisted. It didn't look right at all. And that's always kept, I've always kept that, in my mind and stuff. Other than that, I mean, seeing Sid Vicious break his leg coming off the.
Well, that was awful. Yeah, in WCW was it 2000? I think it was in 2000, right, where he had a match, and then he kind of had the awkward. Yeah, on the it was like an ACL or a gruesome injury, right?
Yeah, that was his shin. His shin snapped.
Yeah, man, it gives me cringe when I seen that one, man. Like I never watched WCW, but when I seen that match, man, I think it was on Stark. I think it was on one of the matches on one of the pay-per-views, if I'm mistaken.
I don't remember. I just remember it was on WCW.
It was awful. Yeah, I think the worst one to come was when Owen Hart died inside that ring. Nobody never knew what really happened until they announced it. Yeah.
I mean, I didn't see. I mean, that obviously would be the far worst. But I mean, I didn't actually see it happen though. Okay. I don't think anybody. Well, the people that were. It's funny because people that were the arena was packed, but I haven't heard one person say I was there, I saw him, and kind of give any kind of detail of what actually happened. But I mean, I'm sure it wasn't a pretty sight to see.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Oh, I like this question because I don't know if wrestlers still do this nowadays, but they got to get drug tests for these type of things. Ask him what he thinks of steroid use in wrestling. Does the stress of the grilling schedule or lack of vacation play a role?
Steroids play a part. I mean, you look at the kids now, and I always see comments of guys like Kenny Omega or Adam Cole or Bryan Danielson. They don't even look like wrestlers. They're too small. And that's true. They are small. But then when you talk about guys like Hogan and Kerry Von Erich and, Lex Luger and I mean, they're big men. I wonder how they got that big. Macho Man. I wonder how they got that big, So there's a place in it. Just don't overdo it. So, I mean, I don't tell my guys, if you want to make it big in wrestling, you got to get on steroids. I don't tell them. That's their choice. And that's, but yeah, there is drug testing. So, you got to be careful with that. To me, there's not enough known about the effects of steroid use. You hear guys of dying and they have an enlarged heart, and then you hear you hear one side say, well, the heart is a muscle. Steroids makes your muscles grow, so that's what happens when you do too much steroids is your heart grows too big and it explodes or whatever. I don't know. I've never done that stuff. So that's that. The stress of the grueling schedule. The schedule today is a lot easier than it was years ago. I mean, um, back then wrestling was a lot of guys did. So the general rule was if you don't wrestle, you don't get paid. So that's where you had guys that were wrestling with injuries, and you had the painkillers come into play. Um, and then also if they took time off, like I think this kind of goes along with the Owen Hart thing. I think I heard Owen took that spot. He didn't want to do the deal coming down the cable, whatever, but he took that spot because he didn't want somebody else to take it, and then he loses his spot. And that's the general idea of wrestling back in the day. If you weren't there for something, you may lose your spot, and who knows if you're going to get it back. So a lot of guys that they wouldn't miss dates or what have you, they uh, they took the painkillers and the muscle relaxants and whatever to go from day to day. And that was when guys were doing wrestling shows, you know, every day of the week, twice on Sundays sometimes. Today, like let's say for example, WWE, their schedule is what Raw's on Monday. They may wrestle Sunday, Monday, and maybe a Tuesday, I guess, maybe Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, maybe Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, and then they're off. The SmackDown group does what Friday and Saturday and Sunday, or Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, or the NXT group does Tuesday nights. They may do a one day and Tuesday. Well, no, they just do Tuesday nights. They may do a Saturday here and there. The AEW group, they do Friday nights, or they do Wednesday nights and they record for Friday. Or, I mean, the schedules are way, way different now than they were back then. So, and then, if you're not wrestling, that should give you time to recover. At the independent level, back in, I guess when I started, you could call that the independent wrestling. We wrestled, Monday through Fridays, twice on Sundays. Um, and we traveled in the car all the time. We didn't drive anywhere. So that, that takes its toll on the body. Now, guys in the independent level, they wrestle Friday, Saturday, Sunday, maybe Friday and Saturday, maybe Friday and Sunday, maybe Saturday and Sunday. Occasionally, if they're in the OVW area, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I mean, guys don't do 7 days a week no more. Very few, if any. So the
Yeah.
schedule, the scheduling and stuff like that is way different than it was before. The funny thing is that you still hear guys, "Oh my God, I'm so sore, I'm so beat up, I'm wrestling so many dates." Oh, and I think to myself, man, this is nothing compared to 1983 or 84 or whatever. This is
Where it
easy.
was like more grueling.
Yeah, this is
And the
easy.
trains were more intense. Like for the other wrestlers, the trains were super intense.
Oh yeah, if you were evaluated. I tell my students this also today. You were evaluated at training. I mean, if you were being a knucklehead, you weren't going to have a show. You weren't even being going to be considered. One of the reasons why I think I was considered was because whenever somebody wanted to try something different, obviously you need a body. Who wants to help me try this new move? And I'd be one of the guys. Hey, I will. You know, um, so and when the other guys, when the established talent sees a young guy that's trying to make his path and get in any opportunity he can, they kind of take a liking to him, and that's who they want to be around with. Nobody wants to be around a guy who's always being a shithead and doesn't want to do nothing and wants everything given to him. Nobody wants to be with a guy like that. So I think one of the reasons why I was able to get in and start doing shows was because I was always uh, volunteering myself to do whatever, and So that kept me busy. Today, and I run a wrestling school, so uh, you have to be a little bit more lenient, and you have to be a little bit more understanding, and sometimes just altogether just be soft, because guys will complain and try and bury you, and then other people out there that don't understand will try and cancel you. So, but on my end, I really don't care, man. If you can't deal with it, then go somewhere. I tell guys, I'm open about it. Go somewhere else, man. If I'm not the guy that's for you, if you think I'm mean or whatever, then go somewhere else. And I'm not saying that to be mean. I'm saying it because I don't want you having a bad experience and leaving the wrestling business because the trainer that you're with was mean to you, and that's how wrestling is. And not all wrestling schools are like my school, and my school isn't like all other wrestling schools.
Yeah,
So,
there's different learning for some of them. Like not like they said, if it's not for you, don't even come here.
yeah, exactly. Like back in the day, like one time, a guy showed up to Joe Blanchard's place, and he was about 6 feet tall, about 180 pounds, just a little, on the thin side. He wasn't built at all, and so he comes in there. And he's like, "Hey, Mr. Blanchard, I want to be a pro wrestler. I want to be a pro wrestler. I want to be a pro wrestler." And Joe Blanchard tells me take him in the other building, and and uh, and work with him. And working with him meant to stretch him.
Oh
And
yeah,
so it was 500 squats and 25 push-ups, 4 sets of 25 push-ups, 4 sets of 25 crunches, uh, 10 minutes skip rope, and just wear him out. And then I got in the ring with them, and I'm just sitting there counting. I'm not doing anything. So when I get in the ring with them, I'm fresh. I'm taking them down, letting them get back up, take them down, let them get back up. And then Joe Blanchard walks in. He's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "You said work with him." He's like, get me in the ring. So he gets in the ring, and he just grabs this poor guy who's already exhausted. And Joe was probably about 60, 70 years old at the time also. And Joe just grabs him, and he just like wrenches his arm and twists his. I mean, the poor guy was and Joe did this for about 20 minutes, man, and took a break. And the guy was, Joe said, he said something. He said, "Are you gonna come back?" And the guy was like, "Yeah, I'll be back tomorrow, man. I got to leave. I'll be back. I'll be back tomorrow." He didn't show up again. He was gone. And Joe said, "When I say take him and work with him." He said, "When I say take him and work him, I mean work him. Get him out of here.
see,
We don't need any more guys." And today, if I did that, man, I'll have a lawsuit. I'll have a
you would
lawsuit.
get sued for that shit. Yeah, they don't do that no more. Like you gotta. It's kind of like a different terminology. Like in those days, like it would be like how you would join the gang, right? They would have to stretch you up a little bit, but
Yeah.
it was different. Oh, I guess if he thinks that independent wrestling's lost popularities after 2022. I mean, independent wrestling, I mean, they still got some shows, but I don't think everybody tunes in as much often.
It depends. I know, like, it depends on where you're at. Like here in Texas, independent wrestling is hot. There's a guy that does a show, um, in okay, so back in the early 2000s, backyard wrestling was a guy that put a ring in his backyard, and they went out and did their thing, and we looked down upon that because it was backyard wrestling. There's a guy here in San Antonio that puts a ring up, not in the backyard. It's a vacant lot right next to his house, I think.
Ooh.
And he has the neighborhood come out there, and they bring their lawn chairs, they barbecue. He has this place where the wrestlers dress at. They have music. They have, I mean, the whole 9 yards, man. And he's a success. Um, I think depending on where you are, I think independent wrestling is suffering in some places, and I think like for this guy, for example, I think independent wrestling is flourishing greatly. I don't think that um, the talent is is being looked at like they used to be. And the reason why I say that is because WB is now looking to colleges for their talent. They're looking for football players. They're looking for MMA fighters. They're looking for high college athletes, because in the independents, there's a lot of wannabe guys that you look at them and they don't even look like wrestlers, but they can perform. They can fly around and do stuff, but they don't look the part. They don't have the same attitude. But they're independent wrestlers. They're pro wrestlers. So in that part, I think, you know, I think the independent wrestling scene has suffered, and it's just more wrestling schools out there. I think it has to do with more wrestling schools being out there, and those guys will take anybody to be a wrestler. At my school, let's say for example, I don't have but maybe 15 athletes. I won't have more than that. And out of those 15 athletes, maybe 2 or 3 will actually become wrestlers. Because I just have a higher standard. I won't, just because you come in and you pay me, whatever, $1,000 or whatever, doesn't automatically make you a pro wrestler.
You gotta earn it.
Yeah, but other schools, man, they take pride in that. We have 50 wrestlers, we have 40 wrestlers, we have 35 wrestlers, we have big deal. We don't need that many guys in the business anymore. And then when you look at them, they don't even look like, you can market them. Or at the end of the day, wrestling's a business.
Yeah.
And so, the AEW guys, the WWE guys, the AAA guys, they're looking at guys that they can make money off of. They're not trying to fill the dressing room with wrestlers. They're trying to fill the arena with fans.
Yeah. Like you just said, like somebody who used to be a pro football player or like an MMA fighter or anything like that, if they got that kind of mentality to be a wrestler, that would be the great fit.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and then you have guys today that complain about that. Like, WWE doesn't want guys that are passionate about the business. They want guys that haven't earned their way. Well, believe it or not, man, Wahoo McDaniel, one of the biggest wrestling stars ever, was a pro football player.
He was a Philadelphia Eagle, if I'm mistaken.
Yeah. Ernie Ladd, one of the biggest wrestling stars ever, was a football player. I mean, that's how it was, man. The pro football players would use pro wrestling in the off season, and sometimes they were making more money wrestling than they were playing football, so they just switched over.
Yeah, Bruiser Brody was I think he was a Washington Redskin before he ended up coming to wrestling.
Bruiser Brody played semi-pro football here in San Antonio. So did Ivan Putski. There were a couple other guys that played semi-pro football. JBL
was with the Raiders before he even got to to pro wrestling, but he was I think he was from Abilene Christian.
John Layfield played for the San Antonio Riders or the San Antonio Wings. There was a semi-pro football team here, and he played for him.
Yeah,
he played with Jason Garrett, who was a coach for the Dallas Cowboys for a while.
Oh, that's interesting. But semi-pros doesn't get a lot of recognition. Like when I was last playing, I played for the Mid-Valley Wolfpacks, which is a local California lead school. I mean, California lead football.
Right.
I stepped away from playing the game with so many injuries, and I just do security, do a little security work here and there, and then do a little bit of these platforms, and then just mix up the content with wrestling, football, other stuff. I get a lot of different athletes here.
Right. I played when my first year wrestling, when I was just helping with the ring stuff. There was a team here called the San Antonio Aztecs, and just for shits and giggles, I went out there and tried out as a linebacker. I made the team. The only problem was that you have to buy your own uniform. You have to pay for your own insurance. You only got paid, I think, $50 a game. And of course there were the injuries.
That was the risky part.
Yeah. And I'm 5'8". I'm not a big guy, so a linebacker, I was gonna get a beating. as opposed to counting to three for these two big guys fighting and stuff, and just count to three or count to five and being a referee. That was the easier route to take. So that's that wasn't a hard decision to make.
Yeah, I guess from the experience, taking a lot of the bumps and injuries, but not getting paid for playing in these type of pro leagues, man. It was just only because I did it for the fun part. It wasn't like I was getting paid or nothing like that. But
yeah, but see, guys that do that in pro wrestling, they get looked down upon. Like, I really didn't care about the $50 to play in a game, or I really didn't care about buying my own insurance or my own uniform. It was the injuries that I was looking at. And
injuries are a risk factor. Yeah, they're a big risk factor. I had multiple injuries out of it too.
Yeah, I mean, I would have probably ended up with some concussions and broken arms and stuff like that if I would have continued that stuff. But I got into wrestling, and I can say that in all the years of me wrestling, I haven't had any major injuries at all. At all.
I mean, you had a lot of good bumps, so there wasn't like any injuries from your part, but it could be risky for some of these athletes too.
I think I talked to Chris Nowinski, who was in WWE for a while now. He has his own practice, I think. I mean, he's one of the leading CTE doctors.
Yeah, the lawyers, right?
He's a doctor.
Oh, he's a doctor for CTE.
Yeah, and he was saying that taking bumps can give you the same effects as getting hit with a chair. And you're taking, but it just takes over time. You're taking bumps, bump, and you're causing trauma to you're still causing trauma to your brain. It's not the same as getting a chair shot. It's not the same as getting hit in the head with, or whatever, with a, helmet to helmet, but you're still bumping. Your brain inside your skull is still taking that trauma. And over time, it will start to affect you. So, yeah, but I would rather take that over a course of 40 years than 3 years of playing football or something, So, those are things that guys got to think about also.
Yeah, like health wise and all that, I could just tell you by experience, taking a lot of the hits, like the hits from the side. I mean, the worst hit I've ever got was just on the special teams, where I'm mostly just trying, like, I guess they were doing an onside kick and I was just getting hit by two people, and my head just like freaking like that was a crazy hit, man. Never felt the hit, but I felt dazed. It was like maybe a little bit of a dazed little reaction of it. Never felt a hit like that in my life. And I'm like, shit, looked like I was almost dead for the play.
I can honestly say I've never gotten hit that hard in football where I felt like, I'm dazed or anything like that. I've been hit hard, but I've never where I've had my bell rung. I've gotten the shit knocked out of me where I've lost my breath. But as far as a head injury, I don't think I've ever, not that I can remember, but I mean, when you get a concussion, you don't remember either. So maybe,
there was different injuries as part of experience, but I think the worst one was a fractured finger where I was playing through the pain and I actually had to like double the tape on it, play through the pain, all that stuff. But I don't think I had anything bad. Like I didn't have no ACL injury, none of those type of stuff. I had more like mostly it was a lot like maybe my shoulder was dislocated from here to there, but nothing bad,
Right.
But it could be risky, like you said. It's a pretty risky sport with the pads, but they're making it soft now. Now you can't even hit like that nowadays.
Well, see, that's the thing is in football, like the NFL, they're making it not as impactful. They're trying to take care of the athletes, but with wrestling, the guys are getting more crazier and more dangerous with their own bodies. And that doesn't make any sense. We're both groups are risking the same type of injuries, concussions and stuff, but yet you still, and you see, I mean, it's frustrating to see a guy grab a quarterback for a second and then the whistle blows and you're like, what the heck? I'm used to seeing guys like Roger Staubach get their bell rung by Jack Lambert or Jack Tatum knocking the heck out of Darryl Stingley to where he unfortunately it paralyzed him, but that was a hell of a hit. If a guy gets hit today like that, that's called targeting, and you're liable to get kicked out of the game.
Yeah.
Because they're trying to ease up on the injuries for the players. But in pro wrestling, man, someone sent me a video and I saw a guy get dropped on his head 3 times, and then they tried to cover him and the guy still kicked out. And it's like, what are you doing? and the move where one was a soup, one was a brain buster, one was a I don't know, you roll the guy up and you pick him up and drop him on his head. And then another one was like a DDT, like 3 moves in a row, and where he dropped the guy on his head, and then he covers him. He goes to pin him, and the guy still kicked out. And every time the guy got dropped on his head, it looked nasty. It looked like, he probably fell high on his shoulders, but that's still, man, you're taking unnecessary. What if the guy slips? What if one of the guys has too much baby oil or something?
And he falls. Yeah, that could be an injury right there.
Yeah. So, other sports, are trying to take care of their athletes, but we're not, and I don't think we need a union to do that. It just takes common sense. I mean, if me and you had a match, I'm not going to say, hey, man, I'm going to give you a brain buster and then I'm going to give you a DDT from the second rope. And no, man, I don't need to do all that. And if you were to tell me the same thing, I would like, hey, dude, just roll me up. You can get the same. If you know what you're doing, you can get the same result.
Yeah, they overdo it is the problem.
Yeah.
Like, what's the point of kicking out of those tough moves? They're supposed to be like deadly finishes at some point.
Exactly.
Like, it's too risky and all that stuff. But yeah, man, we pretty much covered everything you wanted to say, man. Maybe down the road we can definitely do another interview, man. I kind of enjoyed a lot of your knowledge and your input in your wrestling career, man. You must have had a really great career, man.
We just that's what we started to do, but we ended up talking about a whole lot of other different stuff though, which was great.
Yeah, it is. I mean, yeah, it's been going on for we've been going for an hour, man. Damn, it must have been really good. I like wrestling, dude. It gets me a good understanding of what goes on back in the business.
Right. Just let me know, man. More than happy to come on out again.
Oh yeah, for sure, man. Maybe you can help me with some other wrestlers that might be interested in the interviews, man.
Sure. I mean, I got some students that could use the time and share some stuff with you, whatever,
Yeah, I do this with
my wife is Micah. She's on WoW, and she has some stories with what they do over at WoW and stuff. That would be a good deal for you also, and it gives them exposure also. Those are a lot of good hardworking girls.
I mean, I do this for fun. Like I even get college football players for the draft too, and they give me some different stuff. Yeah. I had this one kid who actually got drafted by the Niners, actually, Spencer Burford. I had him on like a couple years ago. He was a kid from UTSA.
Right.
And then I had that linebacker from UTSA that was like, I think he's been on a different league now, but he was a good dude.
Cool.
Yeah. All right, man. We'll call it a day and maybe we'll figure out something down the road. But yeah, it was a lot of fun, man.
All right. Take care, man. Thank you.
Anytime, man.
Yes, sir.